I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned Into NoCo, Town Square Media's show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm talking today with Dr. Ebony Hilton, a practicing physician and associate professor at the University of Virginia, Charlottesville, about hesitancy surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine. So thank you for joining me. I wanted to talk about, we know that a lot of people are getting vaccinated here in the U.S., but vaccination rates are starting to decline. What do you think is causing this hesitancy?
Right. I think the hesitancy is now to the point that people think it can't happen to me, right? That COVID-19 is only for the old and it's only for the really sick, because we know we've done a fantastic job vaccinating our population over 65 years old. It's the younger populations that we're having an incredible time with. But what I would tell those persons is that right now, 36% of all hospitalizations, so that's for heart attacks, for strokes, for everything you name it, 36% of those are for people with COVID-19 under the age of 50. And if you think about that age group, they have children at home, they have jobs that they're responsible for to keep their roof over their head, and yet they're in my hospital. They're on ventilators. They're struggling to actually breathe. They don't have to be, though, because we have vaccines that can prevent all of that from happening.
Right. And I know a lot of people are concerned about some of the side effects of the vaccine. They're afraid it was developed too fast. What would you say to people who are worried about that?
Right. Actually, these mRNA vaccines have been in the works for decades. Right? We weren't talking about it because we didn't need to talk about it because we didn't have a pandemic. But they've been in the works for not only infectious disease and how we can treat those, but also different types of cancers, because mRNA vaccines work by allowing your body to recognize a certain protein, right? And we know that different cells produce different types of proteins. And what we've seen as far as the safety profile is that it is really safe. As far as allergic reactions, we're only seeing severe allergic reactions in 1 in every 200,000 persons. As a comparison, as an anesthesiologist, we give antibiotics literally every day. 1 in every 2,000 people getting penicillin will have a reaction. So that's 1 in every 2,000 for penicillin versus 1 in every 200,000 for mRNA vaccines. It is a really safe intervention, and it's one that can keep you and your family alive. And that's what's important.
Mm-hmm. And now I know when the vaccines first came out, I think there was a little bit of confusion among the general public if you could still get COVID if you had the vaccine, if you could still transmit it. What do we know now about that?
Right. What we know now is that if you are vaccinated, the likelihood of you being able to actually pass the virus on to someone else if you do get infected is literally almost nil to none, meaning that if I get infected, I've been vaccinated now since December 15th. If I come into contact at work with someone who has a very high level of COVID-19 and they cough in my face, my body on day 0 is now ready to fight that war against the virus and prevent it from being able to replicate and really overwhelm my body's system. And therefore, since the virus can't replicate, that means that I now can't infect you. And that's the beauty of vaccinations, is that it's not only protective for you, but it's also protective of others, and really can help create this idea of community, because that's the only way that we're going to get back to a life of normalcy, is that we protect everyone, right? This pandemic has showed us that, yeah, you can live on one street, but if the street next door to you has an outbreak, then you also have now a major, major concern.
Right. And now we've also been hearing a lot about COVID-19 variants. How big of an issue are these? And is the vaccine effective against those variants?
Right. It's an incredible issue, right? We see in India, for instance, we're estimating upwards of 13,000 people a day will die in India. That's incredible, right? And there's many reasons behind that. But what we're seeing with our vaccine is our vaccine has been proven to be efficacious against a South African variant, the Indian variant, the Brazilian variant, the UK variant. And it's really good to know that, because we're seeing these variants have an impact on younger and younger generations, including children. And so the way we can protect our families, the way that we can get back again to this normal, healthy society, is to vaccinate, to reach that herd immunity threshold, and stay ahead of the game when it comes down to this virus that is trying to out-trick and outsmart us along the way.
Mm-hmm. Do we know yet how often we'll have to get vaccines in the future when we might need more doses? Or is that still undetermined?
It's still yet to be determined. And that's the beautiful thing, though. Pfizer released their 6-month data and showed they were still 91% efficacious at keeping you out of the hospital, not requiring a ventilator, and not dying from COVID-19. That's huge, right? And so the quicker we reach this level of herd immunity, the faster we will be able to not have these mutants that will possibly stretch our vaccines to its max. That's going to be our best bet. Now, will we need a booster shot within a year's time? Possibly, but we do booster shots all the time, right? We do a booster shot for tetanus. We have other vaccines that we have to ever so often come in and get another booster shot. That will be possibly the case for this, and that's okay. We can meet that when we have to meet that. But first, we just have to get as many Americans get that vaccine in the arms to protect ourselves and get on to see 2022 together.
Right. And throughout the interview, you've touched on the positive impacts of the vaccine and how it's helping us get back to normalcy. As a healthcare worker, how did you see it really start to make a positive change when it was first getting on the scene? How did it change the healthcare world in terms of this pandemic?
Oh, it was incredible. In the healthcare, we were on the front line, and so were the essential workers. I don't want to undermine their necessity to keep our nation afloat. And healthcare workers, we were dying. We had people getting infections, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, and to be protected ourselves so we can then serve the public in the best way possible has been tremendous. Not only in the physical implications, but also the mental health portion, right? To not have to necessarily live in fear of this and being infected with COVID-19, because you have that protection within your body and your immune system being able to fight off the virus itself. And that's the same type of hope we want to give to other people. If you have questions about this, you can go to fightinfectiousdisease.org. Has a plethora of information that can talk to you about what exactly is COVID-19, what are these different vaccines, and where can I go to actually get vaccinated? What questions can I ask for my primary care physician so I can be best informed? But that's the way that we're going to get over this pandemic and really address our fears, is through information. So go to fightinfectiousdisease.org. All your questions can be answered there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hilton. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And I know a lot of our listeners will find this information helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that was Dr. Ebony Hilton talking about COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy across the U.S. Learn more at fightinfectiousdisease.org.